Before the video starts, I highly encourage you to go play Inscryption by yourself. It's truly a unique experience that I would feel terrible to rob from you. Let's go in. If you know a single thing about Inscryption, is that it is a card game, so let's go over the rules. All cards have their own cost, health and attack. For example, the squirrel has no cost, meaning it can be placed whenever. The stoat, however, costs 1 blood, 1 sacrifice, so in this case we have to sacrifice the squirrel to play the stoat. When we finish our turn, our cards will act, attacking the space opposing them. If there's a card in the opposing space, it will take damage. If there isn't, the host will get a weight on the scale for each attack point. Following our turn, the host will take theirs. Creatures will act and new cards are placed in this back row, which will then be played in the next turn. And the game goes on, until either the player or the host get 5 weights of advantage over the other. And finally, for context, the bell is to finish our turn, the candlestick represents our lives, and the 2 decks of cards are one solely for squirrels and the other for the rest of the cards. Taking a step back, we can see that the host is talking to us as if we were there at some point in time, saying how perhaps we have forgotten how the game is played and that is going to remind us how to play it. That in and itself doesn't say anything notable, but one thing very interesting was the fact that in order to start playing, the only option was to select continue in the main menu, which, putting 2 and 2 together, already raises a few questions. After the tutorial, we're brought to the map.
You were lost deep in a forest. A single path revealed itself.
Here we see our next stops in our journey. The icons on the map indicate different events. This first one will have us choose 1 card out of, in any other case but in the tutorial, 3 that the host offers, introducing another aspect of the game: sigils. Sigils are attributes that most cards have, represented by these symbols in between their attack and health. To give you some perspective, the adder on the left has the Touch of Death sigil, which allows it to kill any creature on attack regardless of its health. On the other hand, the cat has the Many Lives sigil, which allows it to not perish upon being sacrificed. Those are only 2 of 34 other sigils. Moving onwards, the next event introduces yet another aspect of the game: the items. Items manipulate the natural flow of a battle, allowing us to get an extra squirrel, put a weight on the scale in our favor, cut one of the host's cards, and so on. They can be restocked by coming across this event, and we can only hold a maximum of 3 at a time. Following that, we get to our first battle. The stumps and boulders that can be seen on the board are merely obstacles that can be used as sacrifices. We're then dealt our cards. The stoat begins to speak, asking for help. Not knowing best, we comply, and eventually finish the battle victorious. Not long after the battle, we reach another event. Here we are meant to choose 2 cards, one as the host and another one as a sacrifice. Upon confirming, the host will get the sacrifice's sigil and the sacrifice will be removed from the deck. After choosing a sacrifice, the stoat asks us to pick it as the host. We reflect on that while having arguably better cards to pick, and we come to the conclusion that it is better to follow its instructions. We enter another battle, being introduced to yet another mechanic. Totem battles. Totems are divided into pieces, the top and bottom parts. The top part indicates the type of card it affects, the tribe, and the bottom, the sigil it will grant. So, in this case, every canine card will have the airborne sigil. Soon after the end of the battle, we reach another event. We're given the choice of improving the status of one of our cards, randomly chosen to improve its health by 2 or its attack by 1. However, doing it more than once puts you at risk of losing the card, making the reaction of the Stoat to this event within reason, as it chose to stay silent. We then move forward to yet another battle. He's completely insane. You see that, right? No care for the rules. Pathetic, really. Only keeps me around to watch me suffer. Three turns later, we find ourselves in an unwinnable position. The host has 4 creatures in his side of the board against none in ours, so we take the loss.
You lost. Using this as a learning opportunity may be the only way to mitigate my disappointment. Get up. Get up from the table. Fetch me the candlestick from atop the barrel beside the door.
We had already gone over the candlestick, but here we get something completely new. We are able to freely walk around the cabin we find ourselves in. After taking the candlestick and placing it on the table, the host tells us to sit back down, so we take this opportunity to look around. Behind our seat is a Kugel clock, followed by this painting. To its left, we see a safe locked behind a 3-digit code and a few figurines sitting beside it. In the middle of the wall, there's this locked door that we've been able to see constant flashing for a while. Next to it is this wooden contraption that appears to be missing a piece. Close to the host, we see this drawer, and right next to him, a globe, a cage with a statue of a wolf inside, and some candles. Then we sit back down and keep playing.
The tree seemed to close in around you as a chill mist descended. In the distance, you could hear the clinking of metal on stone. A hobbled figure stood in your path.
Eventually, we reach the end of the map and stumble upon a boss battle. Boss battles play with mechanics specific from each boss, also giving the host 2 lives and forcing us down to 1 life of our own. This boss is the Prospector. A special event activates once we get him down to 1 life, which he'll then strike all of our played cards with his pickaxe, turning them into gold nuggets, cards that have no attack and cannot be sacrificed. So, slowly, we make our way through the battle, fending out attacks and even killing the pack mule to get more cards, and eventually we get him down to a single life.
I hope you didn't think it would be that easy. There's gold in them cards. Gold! Extra gold!
And working our way through this slight predicament, we end the battle victorious. our lives are restored back to 2 and we're given a reward of picking a rare card. Rare cards, besides from having a slightly different color and changed layout, differ from the others in many ways. Either from simply being strong like the Uriuli, cheap and reliable like the Gek, by having hidden abilities like the Strange Larva, or by providing extremely useful sigils like the Mantis God. Upon defeating the Prospector, the map changes.
The rank smell of rotten mold permeated the humid air. Every step forward was answered by some nearby slip or slither. You tread cautiously into the wetlands.
Here things are pretty much the same. We continue gathering more cards and improving our deck, but as we get to another battle, there's a way out for both of us. It's somewhere in this folk cabin.
Be silent, or I'll tear you to shreds.
The Stoat makes it clear that we're missing something, talking about a way out of the cabin for both of us, as the host follows by silencing them. Something is going on. At the end of the battle, we find out about another aspect of the game: overkill damage. If we ever win a battle dealing more damage than necessary, we'll be rewarded with a weight for each extra damage. What is it for? Right after the battle, we arrive at the Trapper event. The Trapper sells 3 different quality pelts that can later be used in another event called the Trader, which allows us to trade those pelts for normal cards. The better the pelts, the better the cards we get. The only downside is that pelts are put in the main deck, and given that they can be sacrificed, neither can they attack, they're not at all great cards for playing until you manage to trade them for something else. The next battle is a prime example of why pelts are not great to keep around. We started the game with both of the pelts we left the trader with. That would not have been a problem if all of the host's cards weren't able to attack us directly with the airborne sigil. So, 2 turns later, we lose the battle. Being now shortened to 1 life, we continue playing carefully each battle, until we once again reach the end of the map and face another boss battle.
A foul smell invaded your nostrils and caused your throat to seize. A hulking man sat by a brackish pond with his feet submerged in the dark water. He pulled a hook, a pile of rotting fish, and rose to his feet.
I am the angler. Go fish.
The angler has 2 very interesting mechanics that make him easy to defeat, but a single wrong play can doom the rest of the battle. One of those events is triggered every 2 rounds. The angler will aim for our last played card, and once it gets to its turn, he will pull that card to his side of the board. As you can see, I wasn't aware of this in my first go, and gave away the Stoat. Still, 1 round later, he lost 1 life.
Too fast, too soon.
The game changes completely, placing 8 grizzlies on the angler's side of the board, putting us in an unwinnable position.
Go fish.
We find ourselves in the previously locked room.
You aren't dead yet. This isn't purgatory, though you may think of it that way. Before you expire, I must ask you a favor. I would like a memento. Your very own Deathcard.
We're asked to create our own card before we expire. First, we choose the cost, then the power and health, then the sigils, and finally, the name.
There's now but one final matter. The portrait. Are you ready? You do not need to smile.
As if nothing had just happened, we're placed in the beginning of the game once again. The host greets us and introduces yet another aspect of the game: the bones. Bones are used to play specific cards in order to bring more variety to the gameplay. Instead of having to sacrifice creatures, bones are collected every time one of our creatures dies or is sacrificed. And once you gather enough bones to play a certain card, you can just place it. The battle ends shortly after, and as the host places the map on the table, he realizes that he's forgotten our figurine and tells us to go get it. We get up and take another look around. We realize that there is now a rulebook right beside our seat. One thing you might notice about it is the clearly visible 3-digit code written on it. We'll come back to that. Are you smart or something? Usually doesn't even bother teaching about the bones. Alright, here's the deal. I saw a past victim writing a passcode in a rulebook. With all honesty, it took me around 10 minutes to get up and go try the code, even with the game directly telling me to do so. It wasn't hitting me that the game had more depth than we're about to see.
I wasn't sure if I would ever escape the Iron Crypt. Is this Stoat around? The stunted wolf? This madness must end.
Inside the safe, we find a new sentient card and a key. Using the key, we're able to open the drawer in the other side of the room, revealing 2 different puzzles. Representing the game's board, the objective is to deal 5 points of damage upon pressing the button, by changing the position of the cards vertically. We get 3 new cards with different sigils and... oh, there's more. After some time of trial and error, we managed to open the 2 other compartments. The first one gave us a rare card called Caged Wolf, and the other a wood carving depicting a squirrel. Right as we get to our next battle, which happens to be against the Prospector, the Stoat and the Stinkbug recognize each other and begin to talk, referencing for the second time a third friend here, and putting 2 and 2 together, we can pretty much figure out what we're meant to do next. Right as we discover the Stinkbug, it referenced a certain stunted wolf, and right after that, we get the card of the Caged Wolf, a card that is by all means not greatest, if we put it side to side with the River Snapper, for example. So I think you know what we have to do. Look, there's a third talking card somewhere around here. Personally, I hate the guy. Biggest killjoy ever, but he's the only one of us with a plan to get things back to normal. But before we got the chance of breaking the Caged Wolf card, the run comes to an unexpected end. We're again dragged to the other room to create our card, but something is different. We notice the host's camera laying on the floor. We pick it up and try to use it, and there's no film.
had such high hopes for that last one. Why do I bother trying to teach you? You will learn as we go, or you will die.
Another run begins. Looking at our starter deck, we see that we now start with both the stink bug and the caged wolf. That and the fact that the stoat and the stink bug have changed their appearances and are beginning to morph into something else. Not long after, we find her.
An ancient woman emerged from behind an oak tree. She carefully laid out intricate word carvings, then gestured at them briskly. Choose.
The Ancient Woman is an event in which we build our own totem, such as those we fight against in totem battles. She offers 3 random wood carvings for us to choose one from. We pick the one in the middle with the unkillable sigil, and since we already had the wood carving of the squirrel, the totem is complete, and from now on, our squirrels will have that sigil attached to them in every battle going forward. A few stops down the line, we arrive at the Mycologists, another event. Here, the Mycologists will check our deck for duplicate cards. If there's none, they'll offer us a duplicate card of one of our cards. If there is, however, they'll combine their power, health, and sigils into a single card. We happen to not have any duplicates, so we picked a wolf and moved on. Eventually, we reached the Angler's battle once more, and managed to take out his first life, revealing the real second phase of the battle. Instead of him filling his side of the board with grizzlies, he places bait buckets in front of every card we currently have on the board. A weak card with only 1 health point, but once it's broken, spawns a shark in its place. However, and thanks to a death card we created previously, we get the win. And continued on over to the next area.
A frigid gust of wind billowed, unwelcome into your lungs. The beauty of the falling snow failed to distract you from the chill in your bones. You had ascended to the snow line.
It's here that we find yet another event, the cave. We're given the choice of picking 3 different card properties, in this case either 5 bones, 3 sigils, or 4 of attack. After choosing the property, 3 random cards will be drawn from our deck. If combined they reach the previously chosen property, we'll be offered the card. If not, nothing's gonna happen and we continue as normal. We chose the 3 sigil rule and drew the wolf, the rabbit pelt, and the wolf cub, which combined only have 1 sigil. We failed, so we leave empty-handed. We continue playing, improving our deck and winning battle after battle along the way. Until, once again, we meet the end of the path.
A man stood before you, a man you recognized immediately. It was the trapper. You reached out to examine his wares, but he stopped you. Sorry, but today you will supply the pelts.
The trapper, as with all the other boss battles, always start with some predetermined cards on the board. 2 strange frogs, with another one about to be played, and a leaping trap. But different from the other bosses, the trapper depends a little more on luck. Not every cheap card can either kill the frog in 1 hit or even sustain a hit. The problem with that is that you have to find a balance between spending squirrels and playing cards, or else it's going to be a fast battle. Here's the other problem. Strange frogs spawn leaping traps upon perishing, and when a leaping trap perishes, any card opposing it will perish as well and give back a pelt. so you have to be really careful with what cards you want to play, while still thinking about how you're going to get the 5 damage lead on the Trapper, keeping in mind that he'll still be playing more cards each round. But that would be a problem to someone who doesn't have an infinite supply of squirrels to fend off most attacks.
Let's trade. Powerful cards. I will accept only the finest spells for them.
The Trapper reveals to also be the trader, and plays 8 cards on the board. We now have to use the pelts we've collected previously to remove the cards from the trader's side of the board and into our hand, so we went for the ones with the highest damage and lowish cost. And given that we still had the advantage of having infinite sacrifices, the battle was soon drawn to an end.
With the enigmatic Trapper and trader now bleeding into the snow, you persisted. You could see a light in the distance. You will need another map.
We reach the end of the journey. A house in the middle of the woods. We take a final look around the cabin. Nothing has changed. So, we go in.
Your eyes have fixed themselves on the small cabin. It's warm, like a beacon in the oppressive darkness of the night. Surely this cabin marked the end of your travails. Steps away from the strange cabin, you are presented with an opportunity. I don't offer my boons to just any traveler. If you are able to pass my trials, you will be rewarded mightily.
Similar to the cave, in the trials, 3 cards will be drawn from our deck and we'll have to match the rules we chose. We choose to try and draw a rare card. And we get it. We can now choose a boon to our preference. Boons are rules in our favor that will apply to the battle that we will follow. So we choose the one that allows us to draw twice every round. It is then repeated once more. We try to draw a pelt, and we get it. So we select a boon that allows us to freely choose any card from our deck, and continue onwards.
You managed to get both boons. I rarely say this, but I am impressed. You have been a worthy adversary, but unfortunately, I must soon put you to death.
We enter the cabin and have our first sight of the host, before the final battle began. This battle is, as you can imagine, different in many ways, not only because we have the advantage granted by the boons, but a couple of other things change from a regular boss battle. Firstly, the host now gets 3 lives instead of 2. The board is illuminated with this purple light that creates a much tenser environment coupled with other things such as the music, the moon, and the silhouette of the host staring at us throughout the battle. The host does not have any new ability per se, it reuses those of past bosses every 2 rounds. First, the Prospector's ability to turn all of our played cards into gold nuggets, then the Angler's ability to pull one of our cards to his side of the board at the end of the turn, and that on repeat. However, we couldn't be in a better position. The only thing we could have done better was getting stronger cards with higher attack damage. Besides that, we're pretty much set for a guaranteed win. We have the Squirrels with the Unkillable Sigil that not only provides us with an infinite number of sacrifices but also a last-ditch effort for defense. Then we have the Boons we got, which, in short, let us pick and choose 2 cards at our preference every turn, letting us pick the best card to play, not once, but twice. And so, the battle started. The host starts on the defense with only the Mole Man on the board, a card that prevents the player from taking damage by changing its position. We play for damage this round and take 3 health points out of the Mole Man. The host advances an Amalgam that kills one of our creatures without dealing any damage to ourselves. We then draw 2 cards, our best, Wolf, with 4 of both damage and health, and a Wolf Cup, to deal more damage in later rounds. Realizing we forgot to draw an additional Squirrel to play the Wolf, we place the Wolf Cup in the corner, away from the other creatures, and use an item to place a Black Goat that is worth 3 sacrifices instead of 1 to place the Wolf against the Amalgam. And finish off by placing a Squirrel on the far right to prevent taking damage from the Mantis God next turn. We kill the Amalgam and the Mole Man, and... well, that's not good. We lost all of our cards, but on the bright side, we can draw a total of 4 cards before worrying about taking damage. So we draw the card Mistake and a Pack Rat, aiming at the most amount of damage. The host plays 2 Amalgams and breaks all of our defenses upon playing. We then draw an additional Squirrel and Grizzly and play for defense. Using Mistake's ability of attacking to both opposite sides, we place it in between an Amalgam and the Mantis God to take care of both of them and proceed to place a Wolf against the other Amalgam. But before ending the turn, we place a Squirrel on the board to prevent the Angler's ability from pulling a more powerful card to his side. Everything goes as planned. The host chooses to not play any new cards and we proceed to place everything we have on the board, taking out the host's first life.
You capably endure the onslaught of rare creatures, but the true challenge was forthcoming. Shadowy figures appeared before you go. In their eyes glimmered a recognition of kinship, but colored by guilt. They were betraying you. I remember that one fondly.
We see the host placing 2 cards on the board, Mistake and Reginald, both being past adventurers that didn't make it past him, one of them being one of our cards. Unfortunately for him, we were ready for much more, and in that same round, we claimed the host's second life.
This damned moon is dramatic, yes, but it provides no value to my board. I wonder. Now that is value.
The final stage of the battle, the Moon. The Moon deals 1 damage to every card each round and has a total of 40 health. Having more than enough cards to pull this off, we proceed to, round by round, drain the health of the Moon. And a couple of rounds later,
You really destroyed the moon. I suppose all that's left is to finish me off. Go on.
Oh my, I think I just beat him! Oh.
after defeating Leshy, the host, We see a pile of meat on the table with a candle on it, presumably to celebrate our victory. Suddenly, we hear a voice. It is then that the game cuts into real footage, which ends as quickly as it started. As we process all of that in, we are dragged into a media player where we can see a total of 8 recordings. So, we start to play them.
Hey there, card gamers! I'm the Lucky Carter, and this is another pack opening video. Today I am opening...
The first 2 videos were recorded on the 15th of September. Someone recorded themselves opening Catch Monsters card packs. Everything goes smoothly until, after a minute and a half, we hear a phone ringing and the Lucky Carter stops the recording.
Just cut out this part.
Strangely, the next video was recorded 17 days later, in the 2nd of October, leaving a huge gap in between recordings. More importantly, leaving the last video unfinished, as he is now opening a totally different set of packs.
Hey there, card gamers! I'm the Lucky Carter, and this is a vintage pack opening video. Today I'm opening a few super rare old packs I snagged at a garage sale. I've got 4 packs of Inscryption.
The Lucky Carter opens Inscryption card packs that he bought in a garage sale, an old card game that only had 1 set of cards made. As he starts to open the packs, he finds out that one of them has already been opened and resealed. He opens the pack anyway and stumbles upon a set of coordinates: 49 degrees north, 123 degrees west.
Alright you guys, I'm out here, got my trusty headlamp and shovel. There we go. Yeah.
The next set of videos were filmed the very next day. Our protagonist follows the coordinates and ends up in Stanley Park, Vancouver. After tracking the exact location, he proceeds to hit the ground several times with his shovel until he finds a wooden box. And after digging to the point of being able to open it, he takes off the top of the box and inside finds a floppy disk labeled as Inscryption. Curious, he goes back home and orders a floppy disk drive, and a week later, he filmed this video.
Trying to figure out what's on this thing.
We are the Lucky Carter. We found the floppy disk. We are trying to find out what this game is all about. The game goes back to where we left off, being offered a celebratory meal from the host. And after we deny his offer, he takes us to the flashing room. We see his camera on the shelf, and as we try to take a photo of him, we realize it has no film in it, just as before. He takes it away from us and tells us that in order to further commemorate our victory, he wants to create a card of ourselves.
Shh. Do not despair. You're a winner.
How is this game not over yet?
The game resets once more, this time with a few things added. Firstly, we start with a hook as one of our items, which let us pull one of the host's cards to our side of the board while playing. Going over to the cards, we notice that the Stoat has changed its appearance once more. So having now beaten Leshy, the only thing left for us to do is freeing the caged wolf. Soon after starting another run, and while in a totem battle, we place the caged wolf in a position to intentionally be broken. And 2 turns later, it breaks. A wolf then replaces it, and the battle continues as normal. After the battle, however, we decide to take a look at the actual wolf statue and realize that it has been set free. So we pick it up and put it in the only place it fits. As the wolf goes in, the squirrel statue lets go of the knife, allowing us to pick up Leshy's special dagger. Soon after, we get ourselves in this position. Although we're 1 damage ahead of Leshy, we're in a complete losing position. We're about to be dealt 5 of damage and have no card to turn it back around any soon. We're just going to lose. So, in a complete act of desperation, we use all of our items, including the dagger.
Believe it or not, you're not the first to lose an eye here. This isn't much fun if you're half blind. Perhaps you'd like to replace it?
After stabbing our eye out, we're offered a new one, so we choose the cooler looking one. With our new eye, we're able to see some hidden text in the chest, telling us to find salvation in the cuckoo clock. So we get up, and surely, there's something there. Putting the pointers in the positions shown makes the cuckoo clock open, but instead of the cuckoo, we find another card that frantically tells us to take the film roll before Leshy sees it, so we do so, and sit back down.
I ought to thank you. How has it been?
It has been quite bad. I am trapped in the body of a stoat, in the paper of a card.
I see that. And I have of course set up a way to reset once more. Our player friend here, they already hold the key.
Now we just have to do one thing: win.
as did the cabin's inhabitants. You were invited to sit. The great scribe regaled you with his stories. He told you of a world long past and how he had conquered it, of how pure his true intentions were, how he only wished enough. Eat. Who gave you that? You absolute ingrate. Give it back.
Leshy vanishes, as we've now turned him into a card. Inside the room, we pick up something that leaves the whole room instantly dark and extremely quiet. The only thing we're able to see is the candle that represented our life in the final battle. There's nothing we can do here, so we leave. As we get to the main menu, the new game button is restored. Selecting continue puts us in the same room, so there's only one real option. Start a new game. In the beginning, the world did not know cards. That is, until the day the scribes arrived. Each had their method of inscription to create cards. Grimoire used their quill to inscribe the epitaphs of the dead. Leshy used his wildlife camera to capture beasts. PO3 used a particle scanner to copy the CPUs of robots. And Magnificus used his brush to paint his wizard pupils. With the cards created, the scribes had solidified their power, until one day a challenger arrived to replace one of the scribes. Okay, let's take a step back and piece together what we know. There are three sentient cards: the Stoat, the Stink Bug, and the Stunted Wolf. The Stoat has been with us since the very beginning, ever since we first arrived until the very moment we defeated Leshy, while getting progressively madder and more annoyed. We found the Stink Bug after opening the safe, and in high contrast to the Stoat, it stood low. Never asked or even as much demanded us to choose it in any occasion, choosing to always tells us that the choice is ours and to do what we must. And lastly, the Stunted Wolf is somewhere in between the other two, with lines such as "I must trust you" when being placed on a board and "betrayed" when sacrificed. Looking at those three, considering our position, it wouldn't make any sense to follow what they're saying. Why would we follow anyone's instructions here? That's where Leshy comes in. Leshy is the host we've been playing the game with, all along. He's the perpetrator behind the boards we play, the cards we have, and the characters we encounter. All the while we hopelessly try to not lose and not be turned into a card, to win and be turned into a card anyway. Leshy never intended to free us. That's why the three talking cards devised a plan to cut Leshy off guard and use his camera against him. The camera that probably turned them into cards in the first place. But something is missing. Why are they sentient? They can't have been challengers. Challenger cards are, for one, not sentient, and also just represent the challengers themselves, not creatures. So, what are they? Grimoire, Leshy, PO3, and Magnificus. They are the other scribes. The Stink Bug being Grimoire, the Stoat being PO3, and Magnificus being the Stunted Wolf. Why would Leshy imprison the other scribes? Does he just crave power over the others, or is he doing that to prevent something much worse? Let's find out. we find ourselves in an objectively completely different place. We see 4 altars representing each of the 4 scribes, and are given one task, to choose one of the starting decks to mark our ambition. So we chose to go with the one on the left to become the scribe of the dead. We go down the path and get to the map.
What is this?
Here we're able to see where each of the 4 scribes reside. Since the left side is temporarily inaccessible, we go down to the right to see Gromora.
You're here! Marvelous! I am Gromora, scribe of the dead. Until quite recently, I was disgraced, though I was returned to my former glory with the help of some unlikely friends. If you wish to test your skills against me, you must first prove your wits. You must discern which tomb marks the final resting places of my lovely ghouls.
Gromora tells us that, in order to test our skills against her, we'll have to find out which tomb represents each ghoul, and to do that, we battle. But before doing so, you have probably realized that a lot has changed, yet you can still tell what each thing does. There's the board, the bell, the scale, and the cards, but there's a few changes. We now play with a singular deck, which we receive cards from each starting turn, and we can now destroy cards at any given moment using this hammer. But the main change is probably the now available option to alter our deck, an option that was locked away the whole time we were playing with Leshy previously. Here we can choose which cards we want to use, allowing us to freely remove and add cards in between battles. And given that we chose to replace the Scribe of the Dead, we start with a deck that is composed by cards that cost bones. So, knowing all of that, we start solving this puzzle. In the main room, we find a piece of an epitaph that reads, "Eaten by a hungry dog." And in the next room, we find another one, "Does not hold a grudge." The room to the side is merely a trade room, so the only thing left for us to do is to battle the ghouls. One by one, we battle each of them and find out which tomb is theirs. Defeating the ghoul on the top right, we found out that his name is Royal and his tomb is the one on the right, and hands us the top piece of his tomb. The same goes for the rest of the ghouls: Sawyer Patel, the middle tomb, and Kaycee Hobbes, the left one. After defeating each of the ghouls, we unlock other parts of the map that contain more epitaphs. In the top right we find an epitaph that reads, "There was no cure." In the same area we can open a casket and find another epitaph, hit by a falling piece of ice. Another one can be found inside the well in the top left. The defibrillator failed. And the final one, downstairs, brought down to scurvy. Let's put them together. We already know where the top epitaphs go: Royal on the right, Sawyer on the middle, and Kaycee on the left. But what about the other ones? Well, for the middle we have 3 options: eaten by a hungry dog, hit by a falling piece of ice, and brought down to scurvy. To solve that is very simple. Sawyer's first card on the board is always a bone hound, which represents a dog, so eaten by a hungry dog. Royal always plays the ghost ship, so brought down to scurvy, leaving Kaycee with a hit by a falling piece of ice. And for the bottom parts of the tombs, we go in randomly until we find the right combination. And so, we battle Gromora. It took a while, but after tweaking with the deck and having a better understanding of what each card does, Gromora was eventually defeated.
You really defeated me. I was not expecting that. You won't replace me, will you? Your ambition is to take my title, but there is something you might not know. There will come an opportunity to change your mind, and I beg that you spare me. Take these, then go.
After Gromora, we decide to pay a visit to the Scribe of Technology.
Challenge me. Let's see your deck. Weak cards. Total lack of synergy. This pile really doesn't stand a chance against me. Look, I'm trying to finish up my conduit control list here, but the bots they're sending down the line are trash. Get those workers to send me something good. Tell them to throw themselves down the line if necessary. And please, have a decent deck by the time you're done.
Just like with Gromora and the rest of the scribes going forward, we first have to beat 3 of his workers before confronting him directly. Making our way through some simple puzzles, we find the Inspector. He asks us who we are to be carrying orders from PO3, and that PO3 will only trust someone with some resemblance of card game skill. And with that, a battle begins. The Scribe of Technology brings a new way to play cards. Energy. Basically, the way it works is, every turn we get more energy. We'll start with 1, then 2 on the next turn, and so on, until we reach the 6th turn, where every turn after will start with a full bar of energy. Among other things, like a new type of card that creates circuits that improve the status of other cards, and my favorite card of this type, the Gamblebot, which costs 3, and you can pay 1 energy to give it a random attack value between 1 and 6. After defeating the Inspector, he proudly sends himself down the line. So we go and talk to the Melter, which led to the same fate as the Inspector. And finally, the Dredger. The Dredger goes straight to the point on how he's not going to jump in. A battle begins anyway, and he quickly interrupts it, saying that he can't take his eyes off his work, and gives us the win. That's when, after opening the card pack that he gave us, he catches something different. It's similar to the other pieces that he caught, but somehow it's glitching. But having theoretically defeated all of PO3's workers, we go and talk to PO3.
You battled all my workers, and you actually won. Give me that deck again. Whoa, you beat them using that? Alright, maybe there are some synergies that I missed. Let's go then.
The PO3 battles follows the same rules as the previous others, only adding the conveyor belt, which, as you can imagine, moves the cards around at the end of each turn. But once again, eventually, we won.
Nice luck you had. I guess playing a perfect game is no match for good RNG. I guess you won. Your ambition is to become the Scribe of the Dead? That naive spinster. You ought to reconsider.
The battery of the camera runs out, and we return to the Camworks media player with a new set of videos from the Lucky Carter. The first one taking place just 2 days after the last video from the other set of videos we watched previously.
I think I've just got to send it.
The Lucky Carter, having its real name being revealed as Luke Carter, sends an email to the publishers of the Inscryption trading cards, trying to get some, if any, information about the digital version of the game.
I think maybe one of my fans pranked me and buried a copy in the woods near my house. Upon further research, however, I have not been able to find any trace of this game. Is this some kind of elaborate hoax? The game doesn't seem like the work of a prankster. It appears professionally made. I am both puzzled and excited by this discovery. Any information you can provide would be much appreciated.
And the day after, Luke records a video for his channel asking his viewers for help.
Did anyone ever play an Inscryption video game? Or hear about it? I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I don't want to get in any trouble here. I think I've got the only known copy of the digital version of Inscryption. I've been filming myself playing it, and it's weird, guys. I don't want to get in any hot water by showing the footage, but can someone please prove me wrong? Please tell me someone has a copy of this game. I have been looking online for days and I cannot find a word about it. I reached out to the publishers hoping maybe they would get back to me, but as a fallback, I got you beautiful viewers. Can hopefully dig up something. That's it. That's the video today, guys. Thank you so much, as always. And, oh yeah, what the fuck is the card?
The video glitches and the audio cuts out before we're able to hear what he said. However, turning on the captions reveals a long string of binary code, and upon translation, we get the words Carnoffel code. The day after, Luke gets an answer. Game Funa, the publisher, responds, affirming that no such digital copy of the game exists, but also demanding Luke to return it as soon as possible and threatening legal action if such thing exists, ending with Luke reacting appropriately.
What the fuck?
I think this woman's actually from Game Funa. She came to my door yesterday and I didn't answer. This time I'm gonna record it. Hi!
Hi there!
Hey.
I'm floppy disk for a game called Inscryption. Disk for a game called Inscryption. Floppy disk for a game called Inscryption. I was told you came by a copy of it somehow. Sound familiar?
No.
No?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Luke is visited by a representative of Game Funa, Amanda. Seeing that this situation is becoming dangerous, Luke decides to deny every email in Game Funa, to which Amanda proceeds to tell him his name and that she knows exactly who he is. And just to make it clearer, she's standing on his porch just 3 days after he sent the email and the day after he got the response. Not only that, but apparently she was here the day before. We get back in the game right where we left off, and decide to continue by going after Magnificus, the scribe of magics. Arriving at the tower, we find a note that reads,
Greetings. If you're reading this, it must be because you wish to challenge me, Magnificus, to a card battle. But in order to earn that privilege, you must first defeat my 3 graduate students. As for their whereabouts, that is for you to discover. Sincerely, Magnificus.
Ahead on the table, we find a monocle, and after putting it on, we're able to see some paint scattered around the note that we just read. Reading the note once again, we realize that 3 symbols were hidden above the text, so we put in the combination and we find the first student, starting a battle. As you can imagine, Magnificus also brings something new to the board. His main thing being gems and gem-dependent cards. This first battle demonstrates them pretty well. The card on the right is called Emerald Mox, and when on the board, improves the status of gem-dependent cards. In this case, improving the attack of the green mage by 1. So the way we counter this is by removing the gem from the board, and changing the green mage's attack value back to 0. After defeating the first student, we unlock the next floor of the tower and stumble upon another puzzle. Realizing that we need another code, we look up at the dummy and realize that there's a little bit of paint on him. So we approach it, and the battle ends as fast as it started, giving us no results. So we try again and decide to attack its cards this time. There was no reason for doing so, since its cards were locked in the left part of the board, and we figured we just had to win to get the code. But in reality, the next 3 cards to be played by the dummy gave us the code. One by one, we get it, and arrive at the second student. Defeating the second student unlocks another floor of the tower, this one being noticeably emptier than the others. We see 3 notes on the floor that read, "The top sigil is found by the greedy, the middle sigil is found by the pale, and the bottom sigil is found by the hard of hearing, or by those who hear too easily." Opening the chest gives us a new card, and interacting with it once more, we discover the first sigil. Now, looking at the top left part of the room, we see some traces of paint in the corner, and if we go there, we find a secret room containing the second sigil. And for the third, we have to open the options menu and go to sound volume. Me being me, after finding the first 2 sigils, I just guessed what the third was and got straight into the third student. Once the third student is defeated, we go to the upmost part of the tower to meet Magnificus. But before doing so, we notice a note on the table that reads,
Dearest Remora, I believe PO3's plot may go far past the extent of a common power grab. Indeed, this great Trancendence will have catastrophic and unpredictable results. I urge you to consider
ending abruptly.
Ah, you're here at last. How do my pupils fare? No matter, there are far more concerning issues at hand. Do you understand the canvas that you've been woven into? Nay, you are the brush, and the artist moves you with a terrifying mastery. My eye aches with premonition. The future is very grim. First, we must battle.
So, Magnificus, every time we draw a card, will always erase its sigils and grant it a different one among these 5, forcing us to better study the cards and change around our deck, as we're now going to use the cards in a totally different way. Still, after a while, Magnificus had fallen.
Very well, we have battled, and now I may speak. You see, my eye, it aches because it remembers it was excised by none other than Leshy, the scribe of beasts, and a beast he is, arrogant, single-minded, obsessed with gaining power, but he is far from the worst scribe to become hegemon. You see, the ejection of my eyeball is far from the worst thing that can happen around here. You must be especially aware of.
Magnificus vanishes spontaneously. 3 scribes down, 1 more to go. Going over to Leshy's place, we see the code for the safe outside the cabin, and going inside, most things are as we remember them. Leshy's table, the safe, the other table, and the drawer with the puzzles. Solving the drawer's puzzle simply gives us a card pack, and upon opening the safe, we take a stinking pile of meat from it. Talking to Leshy, he says that in order to battle him, we must first battle his subordinates. And in order to do that, we're given a replica of Leshy's camera, as each of his subordinates require a photo before considering battling us. Going outside, we put the pile of meat in a bowl, bringing the attention of the prospector's dog. We take a photo of it and bring it to him, starting the first battle. After defeating the first subordinate, we unlock this part of the map. It's very straightforward here, so naturally, we take a photo of the bait and place it on the hook to bring the attention of the shark and take a photo of it. You know, why not? With that photo, we're able to battle the angler, and after winning the battle, we unlock this last puzzle. A bunny is constantly jumping in and out of these 4 holes, and we can see a bear trap that we can push around laying there. After a while of thinking the bunny will eventually walk to where I wanted him to, I gave up and decided to check where that little bit of paint leads to. And we find her, laying around in a hidden part of the forest. Few players visit me here. I sometimes ponder what my gameplay purpose was. We soon leave that area and solve the rabbit puzzle, taking a photo of the rabbit's pelt and bringing it to the trader. And after the trader, we head on to whom seemingly started it all, the scribe of beasts, Leshy. Leshy's ability is his camera. he'll take 3 photos, one of each of our first 3 cards to Parish, and once we get to the second stage, he'll create that card and hand us a few copies of it. A very forgiving battle, in our favor even. So, eventually,
triumphed, narrowly avoiding tooth and claw. The scribe of beasts was defeated.
I had to see your face after you lost. You're just so bad. It's no wonder you're back here again. And it would have been even sooner if the disc wasn't lost. Take a long look at this face, cause you'll never see it again. I'm done being your pet.
I pushed it too far that last time. Why don't they see? To live as a beast would be the noblest thing. Even so lowly a creature as a stoat.
We leave Leshy's cabin and head to the place where we first arrived. Immediately upon arrival, we're told that it's time for us to choose the scribe that we want to replace. Moments ago, in the heat of the moment, we went for the Scribe of the Dead, for no reason than the cooler name. But now, let's think this through. What scribe will be the best to replace? Essentially, what scribe that we replacing will be a positive change to everyone else? There are 2 reasonable options. Leshy and PO3, the only scribes that have been proven to have power grab tendencies. Leshy imprisoned the other scribes and turned Inscryption into his own game. If it wasn't for us in the first place, winning battle after battle, we wouldn't be here to make this choice right now. Gromora and Magnifica seem to be the only reasonable ones, and PO3 has only been mocking us at every opportunity he gets, but at least he didn't do what Leshy did. So, we choose to replace Leshy.
Fool. You have no idea what could have been. A carefully curated cycle of life and death, excitement, terror, mystery. I suspect that I know which scribe bested me. Of course, PO3. The synthetic freak knows nothing of artistry, of aesthetics. Monster. I liked you better as a stoat.
Filthy old beast, I'll never be your stoat again. Now let's play. We're supposed to battle the scribe that you picked, but like a powered up version for the finale. This is going to be different.
After choosing to replace Leshy, PO3 glitches in and forcefully removes Leshy from here, and begins a battle that, if according to plan, should have been with Leshy instead. The battle starts with very weak cards from PO3, given that this is the finale, but out of nowhere, he plays this.
I'll just leave this here. I've got to give it to the Dredger. Not as useless as I thought.
PO3 plays a glitched card using the corrupted piece the Dredger found earlier, and trying to continue the battle, we hit the bell. the game gets completely corrupted, and we find ourselves in a room with PO3. He places a map on the table and introduces the game. This is Botopia, a once great technological paradise. It's ruled over by 4, Uberbots, that's right, and you've got to get there and beat them. Why? To perform the Great Transcendence, of course. Doesn't matter what that means, you want it, okay? Well, this is familiar. PO3 created his own version of Lash's cabin, but if we try to get up, we see that we're strapped in, having no choice but to play PO3's game. We're placed in the same place we were moments ago before it all changed, in front of the 4 altars, and a single option is given to us to walk to: south. The board is room-based, meaning that we're going to travel to new areas room by room, choosing the way we want to go as it is allowed on the map. And in the middle of those travels, we may find some enemies blocking the way, forcing us into a battle. Now, take everything you've learned so far and combine it. PO3's new board combines many things from earlier others. For instance, just like the main card cost in Lash's cabin was blood, PO3 only uses energy. And we now have a hammer, something we already had before, but being in high contrast to the other many things Lashy had that are present now, such as the scale, the bell, and the 2 decks. The only difference being that instead of squirrels, the free card deck now deals empty vessels. But the one big difference from all the other boards so far is the 5 lanes, making the board much wider. The battle ends and we move over to the next area. While making our way through the map, we encounter several events that add cards to our deck, make us add sigils to chosen cards, and similar other things we saw with Lashy. Sometimes we may even find Robux, a currency that can be used in certain parts of the map, especially the shop. Now, the following hours of gameplay follow the exact same pattern we've seen in Lash's cabin. We walk, battle, get cards, battle and either lose or win, but being much more forgiving. With Lashy, if we lost, we had to start from the beginning with a completely new deck. But here, whenever we lose, we go back to the nearest waypoint. Waypoints are these towers that can be found at the entrance of important places, mainly placed at the entrance of new areas or at the front doors of boss battles. The only downside is that when we die, the enemies we already battled respawn. There's a lot of new things that happen here, such as the bounty hunters, hollow pellets and the bomb defuse event, just to name a few, but I'll focus more on the most important events. After approaching the right part of the map and finding our second waypoint, the power goes out. PO3 freezes and tells us to go get a new battery for the board. Getting up, we realize 2 things. 1, we are in the factory, and 2, there are puzzles that we need to solve. The bridges that connect each platform are deactivated, so we go and solve captchas to bring it back, which is kind of ironic. We go to the other side and grab the battery, and open a box that had a sentient card inside. Fishbot, the angler, that in a battle shortly after tells us that Lashy fish is near, must find, other scribe fish too, and deep beneath. After a good hour of wandering around and understanding things, we make our way to the bottom right corner of the map. And to put it out of the way, we are in the same map as earlier, it's just being used differently. That can be proven by where we started, the 4 Uberbots we're supposed to defeat, and our position and the theme of this area we're in right now. We are in Gromora's place, and we are about to fight the first boss. That being the Archivist. The archivist at first doesn't seem to do anything special, but once we defeat one of his cards, his true powers are revealed. We're asked to grant BO3 access to our hard drive, and we happily accept. And then, every time we kill one of his cards, we have to choose a file from the hard drive to put it on the scale. So I chose one of the biggest files that I had, and it counted as 5 on the scale. And since the archivist is constantly sending more of these cards, our only way to fight back is to continue choosing bigger files. Something I didn't understand for some reason, and kept avoiding large files and digging into the Windows files for literally bite-sized ones. But eventually, I got into the second phase.
Please select a file. This one, however, is very special. Choose a file that is nearest to your heart, and one that shows age.
Good thing I reset my computer near the end of 2023. So I decided to follow what he said before, to choose a file that is nearest to my heart, and honestly, I couldn't tell you what that is. However, it wasn't long until the archivist was defeated. Lighting the first altar. A new memory card was inserted into the camera, and looking at the data of the videos, we realized that these happen at roughly the same time as the other ones. So, let's see them.
Well, hello there, card gamers.
2nd of November. This video was recorded moments before Luke filmed himself opening the Inscryption packs. It simply shows Luke celebrating his findings. Little did he know where those packs were going to take him. 16th of November. 3 videos. Luke is still searching for anything that resembles a lead, and finding no hope online as no trace of a digital version of Inscryption is apparent, he decides to call Mrs. Hobbes, the person who sold him the card packs.
Hi, hello, is this Mrs. Hobbes? I was just wondering if you remember those playing cards that you sold me? Those... Yes! Yes, those ones. Inscryption, yes. They were your daughters? Would it be possible for me to speak with her? She passed, isn't she? Oh. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Oh, it was a while ago. That's still terrible. Oh, it's nothing really. I'm sorry to have bothered you, ma'am. Her name was Kaycee. That's a lovely name. Sorry, what? She worked for Inscryption? I mean, she worked for Game Funa? These articles mention death or injury. Oh my god. No one was killed at the facility, though tragically young video game developer Kaycee Hobbes died from fire-related complications. She was working late at the facility, performing quality assurance on behalf of her employer, Game Funa.
Kaycee Hobbes. Remember her? Kaycee was a developer at Game Funa that tragically died due to fire-related complications. This seems like an answer, but leaves a lot more questions. Assuming Kaycee was the one developing the digital version of Inscryption, why did she hide it? Why would there be no trace of the game? And was her death premeditated? And then we have the video on the 17th, where Luke is woken up by people trying to get into his house.
Mine's in the other room, so if I die before I can call 911, use this tape as evidence.
that's not all. You see, every time we stumble upon this media player, there would always be some glitched videos with absolutely nothing in them. But these final two, they're different. The first one hides this. And the second one, well... One Uberbot done, 3 more to go. The next boss is the photographer. The photographer has a camera that will give us the choice to take a photo of the board at the start of each turn, and if we had taken a photo before, it will allow us to go back to that board state. Something I totally missed when I came across it, and totally didn't fake it just now. Let's move on. Upon approaching Magnificus's tower, we're told to stand up and retrieve a piece from the smelter room. We get up and solve a few more captchas to activate a passageway, grab the missing piece and get back to the board. Here we're introduced once again to Magnificus's additions to the gameplay. We get to gemify some of our cards, and all of our empty vessels are turned into gems. In short, our deck gets slightly stronger with absolutely no debuffs. That's when we go inside the tower. The guy who used to live here was a major drag. Though I'll admit, he was not dull. Guy had a plan forever eventually. That is except for the Great Transcendence. We eventually make our way to the top of the tower and meet the third Uberbot. We begin by painting its face, before having to choose a debuff for ourselves. It's structured in 2 parts, the condition and the consequence, which will be in place for the rest of the battle. And in phase 2, we have to make another one of these. I decided to go for a every time anything happens, every card takes 1 damage route, which worked pretty well. And finally, we reach PO3's place, in which we turn our empty vessels into conduits. So just so you know what's going on, the empty vessels started like this, and now they each have 3 sigils, are gems, and are now conduits as well. To fight the final boss, we have to activate each of the satellites scattered throughout the island, and upon activating the last one, the final battle begins. It really should be a tense moment here, battling the final boss before the Great Transcendence. Instead, I'm battling my Steam friends. That's pretty much how it goes. The 4th Uberbot is defeated, but before going right into the Great Trancendence, let's take a look around.
The Great Transcendence? No, we don't think so.
We
we are able to temporarily put our differences aside for the greater good.
Yes, but we shall see what comes of it.
Perish your anxieties, Magnificus. The bot must be stopped, and you, Challenger, will provide the perfect distraction.
Yes, perhaps when BO3 believes it has won, so jubilant will be that android. He will disregard the surveillance cameras.
Yes, Challenger, you must continue to play. Defeat those half-baked bosses. Play out those hackneyed mechanics. And when the moment is right, we will strike.
I will. I will be the one to strike. Go now, Challenger. Indulge that decrepit machine. Make VO3 feel joy, so that I may snuff it out.
We go down the lift and find where the 3 other scribes are hiding and plotting to stop BO3, planning to end all of this selfish reality he has created and put it back to where it once was. We return to the table and step forward.
Great job! You prepared the great Trancendence for me, without even knowing what it was. But you understand it now, right? Right, Luke?
BO3's plan is to upload this version of Inscryption while he's in control of it. He himself says, "We finished the game for him, gave him access to our hard drive, took screenshots for the store page, and connected him to the internet, enabling him to upload the game. That's when he makes us watch as he uploads it. But we already know what's about to happen."
This is done.
That was perhaps cutting it too close, but now we can allow our player here to reset the game. Simply use the new game card again.
Oh, what is this? Complete file access. Wonderful.
Gromoro finds a folder capable of providing complete file access and uses it to delete the game itself. As assets begin to vanish and Leshy and Magnificus realize their demise, Gromoro explains how they'll see this as a freedom from their endless quarrel and suffering, how there are things on this disc that must die. As Gromoro says her final goodbyes to the remaining scribes, we witness what could have been Gromoro's board. She invites us to play before it's too late. And we do so while things are actively being deleted as we go. We reach the boss battle. but the time is already up.
I hope we had just a little more time. It is time to rest.
Then we go back to the beginning. Lash's cabin. The place we first arrived at when we initiated the game. And now we're seeing it being deleted in front of us, as Lashy is completely aware of what's about to happen to him, everyone, and everything else in the disc.
I think it's time. Goodbye. Good game.
Finally, we visit Magnificus in his realm.
Why not simply eject the disc block? Spare me and whatever is left. But I have foreseen it. You do not eject the disc, you have to know what comes next. And you're doomed for insisting on it. So let us dance, for we shall both be meeting our maker soon.
The battle goes on for a couple of minutes, getting progressively more corrupted over time, until eventually the board is deleted.
I must still... shake your hand.
There isn't much left. Inscryption is mostly gone. All that remains is the old data. It is recommended that you do not access it. You will not heed the advice.
Hey Luke, this is Herman from the Herald, just following up after the message you left me this morning. Do you have time to talk right now?
Yes, thank you so much for getting back to me.
No problem, Luke. If I understand you correctly, you've got some video footage that might expose some malpractice on the part of a game publisher, Game Funa.
Yes, that's right. Firstly, I have a game of theirs that took control of my PC for a bit, which can't be illegal, and then this woman from the company came to my house, and she...
Okay, hold on a second. Let me just get my pen and pad here, okay. Okay, so you have a game of theirs that took, was it a virus or something?
I told you!
Luke, a YouTuber who records pack opening videos, buys some card packs of Inscryption, an old card game that only saw one set of cards printed in its existence. While recording a video opening those packs, he finds a set of coordinates written in one of the cards and, going there, finds a floppy disk with the digital version of Inscryption. Throughout the days, he will record himself playing the game and search for answers as to why there's no information online about it. And one place he looked into was Game Funa, the publisher of Inscryption, who immediately intervened by sending Amanda to his house to try and retrieve the floppy disk. Now, in the game, we learn about the 4 scribes, starting with Leshy as the host, then PO3, the Stoat, Gromora, the Stinkbug, and finally Magnificus as the Stunted Wolf. Upon arrival, we realize that Leshy is and wants to be in total control of the game, saying multiple times that he will eventually turn us into a card, which happened even when we won. So we followed instructions of the 3 other scribes, especially Magnificus's, to grab Leshy's camera and turn it to himself. Doing so allowed us to start a new game. The game goes back to what it's supposed to be, the unification of the 4 scribes into a linear card game, where we learn and collect every card that every scribe has to offer. The goal being, replace one of the scribes. Battle by battle, we conquer every scribe and are met with the choice of who we want to replace. And taking into consideration what we had learned, we choose Leshy. But that didn't matter. When we went to PO3's factory, we saw the Dredger collecting something he referred will make PO3 reward him big for it. A piece of something that was glitching the game in on itself. PO3, using the strange properties of that piece, glitched into the scene, removed Leshy, and started a battle. And surely enough, during the battle, he glitched the game in such a way that he obtained complete control of everything. And similar to earlier when we were in Leshy's cabin, we were now in PO3's factory. There, we are tasked to battle for Uberbots, each with their own catches to perform the Great Trancendence, which we come to learn that was PO3's plan to publish the game online while he's still in total control. However, his plans were cut short when the 3 other scribes united and stopped him from doing so. And when everything seemed fine and we were told to, once again, start a new game, Gromora deleted everything. Luke is then seen contacting a reporter, in hopes of exposing Game Funa for their malpractice, and in the middle of the interview, Luke gets a knock on his door, realizes it's Amanda, and while opening the door to confront her, gets killed. So, is that it? It's here that our timeline comes to an end, but a new path opens our way. Kaycee's Mod. Kaycee's Mod is a rework around Leshy's cabin. It follows the same overall rules of the real deal, only changing and adding a few more things. For once, challenges. In order to progress in Kaycee's Mod, we have to meet a certain quota, and in order to do that, we have to choose our debuffs for that game, the challenges. The harder the challenge is, the more points we earn. For instance, the challenges we start with are the no hook, no clover, smaller backpack, and pricey pelts, each rewarding 5 points to a starting quota of 10, allowing us to freely choose which challenges we want to play with. And to make it clear, in order to complete a run in Kaycee's Mod, we have to play the whole thing until the end, meaning that we have to play against the Prospector, the Angler, the Trapper and Trader, and Leshy himself over and over again, in order to progress and unlock new challenges, starting decks, and collectible cards. It's undisputably the best mod in the game for those who just can't get enough of Inscryption, as challenges force us to rely on other things and create new strategies to eventually beat Leshy, allowing us to be able to look at the game in a completely different way. As I said, Kaycee's Mod is simply, at its core, Leshy's cabin. There are only a few tweaks here and there that make it slightly different if you discount the final boss battle, which is the boss we didn't get to play with Gromora moments before it all got deleted. But let's focus on another aspect of this game mode. Every time we finish a run that meets the quota, 3 things happen. We unlock new challenges, the quota is risen, and we unlock a new entry. What is an entry? Well, let's read it. Okay, I need to write this down now so I don't go to sleep and tell myself I dreamt it. I'm working late and testing the latest build, and out of nowhere, the Angler starts freaking out. Like he pulled something up out of the river with a hook, then he gets up and walks. There is no walk animation for this character. What the f***? He walked right into the cabin. I followed him in and couldn't find him. Leshy had some new dialogue lines that I cannot find in the dialogue file. He said something about some old data and how the angler served him well or something. I'm so tired that I'm already wondering if I made this up. Entries are logs that Kaycee wrote while developing Inscryption. Here she proclaims that both Leshy and the angler were behaving not as intended. Not only were they not behaving normally, they were behaving in ways that shouldn't be possible, all while expressing a strikingly similar behavior to that of PO3 and the Dredger. Going back to the menu, we can enter the devlog section and see that there are 12 entries in total. Unlocking them all uncovers the full timeline of when Kaycee started logging about the strange behavior of the angler and Leshy to when she buried the disc. In the entry after, Kaycee announces that Leshy took over and it's 3D, which mirrors PO3 rise to power experienced previously. Kaycee tries unsuccessfully to contact the rest of the dev team about the anomalies, beginning to accept that Inscryption and its characters are behaving unnaturally. Still skeptical, she digs into the disk itself for answers and stumbles upon the old data, finding a log from someone she knows named Mr. Kamenski, mentioning that the development of Inscryption is just a cover. So, not long after announcing the beginning of the creation of an external version of Leshy's Inscryption, promptly named as Kaycee's mod, Kaycee writes the following in one of her entries. I dig deeper into this log file and find things I sometimes wish I hadn't. This could all be bunk, or there could be a doomsday machine under Berlin armed by a code hidden on a pack of cards. Kaycee begins to grow more concerned about the contents of the disk, especially the old data and the Karnoffel code, mentioning one time where she was close to throwing the disk into the water so no one could ever access it. Until one day, Mr. Kamenski called her, demanding all of the sample disks to be brought back to the factory, to which Kaycee couldn't bring herself to do that, so she put the disk in a wooden box, buried it, and wrote the coordinates down. So, we know what probably happened then. 9:45 PM, Kaminsky calls Kaycee about the disks. Kaycee buries the disk containing the old data, writes down the coordinates in the card before putting it back in a pack, and returns the rest of the disks to the factory. It is then that something happened, tragically killing Kaycee in the process. And not being able to get rid of the coordinates as intended, they stood there among the rest of Kaycee's belongings for a while, until eventually her mom decided to open a garage sale. It is there that Luke Carter stumbles upon the vintage card pack and takes it home. But there's another thing. This note that we found in one of the glitched videos. At this point, we've done everything. We played against Leshy, reset the game, saw the rise and fall of PO3, watched as the game got deleted, and played for hours to unlock Kaycee's entries. But as you can probably guess, that's not all. The text on the note goes like this. A large string of text that can be separated in 3 parts by these 2 vertical bars. So, let's solve this. Mycologist 12. If you can recall, the mycologists are part of an event that takes place in Leshy's cabin. However, Leshy's cabin doesn't take part in the solving of this puzzle. Going back to Act 2, after defeating at least 2 scribes, a new island appears on the map. It's there that we meet the mycologists. They'll ask us to bring them 2 of the same card, so we do it. They reward us the result of their experiment and ask us for a different duplicate set of cards. After repeating this process 4 times, each duplicate card originated from a different scribe, we are rewarded a purple key. Fast forward to Act 3, after making our way to the right side of the map, the corresponding area to that of the mycologists previously, we can meet them again. They tell us that they've gained complete control of PO3 and that they must now experiment. A battle begins in which their middle card is constantly mixing itself with other nearby cards, our only task being to fend off attacks and manage to keep the battle going. Until... we find what we're looking for, a fragment of the old data. Okay, we have this now, let's go over the others. Perhaps. This one goes much different, and in order to solve this, we just have to put a bunch of pieces together. The tough part is being on the right track. Perhaps is a reference to an Easter egg in a previous game from Daniel Mullins, the creator of Inscryption. It's an audio found in-game that was reversed and interpreted as a beeper, perhaps. From here, we head over to the game's credits, where we can find a link to a model of a beeper from Louis Nathus, which does not work. Nathus being the reverse of Satan, which also refers to Daniel's previous game. But for now, we'll just save this link and move on to the final piece of the puzzle. Blood Letter Box. Okay, similar to the mycologist, in Act 2, in the basement of Grimora's crypt, we can find a casket with a creature inside requesting an offering. As we play, we notice that there are two cards very fitting for each other, the left broken obol and the right broken obol. And sure enough, if we manage to get them side to side on the board, they join together to create an ancient obol. Now, going back to the basement, we offer the obol and the casket reveals a hidden flight of stairs. And going there, we meet the Bone Lord, which, in high contrast to all of the other characters, appreciates the power of the old data, and after a quick dialogue, he offers us a blue key. Fast forward to Act 3, in a room that was previously inaccessible, we open the door and meet the Bone Lord once more. He tells us that he's going to tell us everything he knows about the old data, but that it must not be recorded. So the camera goes off, and as soon as it comes back on,
What the f***, man?
Luke and PO3 appear flabbergasted from what they've just witnessed. The Bone Lord disappears and we are free to leave. However, if we take another look at the clue, Blood Letterbox, that's when you take a video and put it in a different aspect ratio, creating these black bars. And if we try to do that with the game, sure enough, there it is. Okay, so now we have these three things. What do we do with them? At the start of Act 2, before anything else, we see this. A command prompt showing the old save being deleted and a new one being created. So, what if we... That's right, a command prompt. Having paused loading the game, we are now able to type. One such prompt we could type in would be continue, to continue loading the game. But as with any command prompt, we can type help and take a look at all of the commands. Echo makes the console type whatever you put after. CD changes directory, ls lists the contents of a directory, rm is for remove, open is to access files, decode... Decode? Okay, we've got something here. Let's start with listing the contents of the floppy disk we're in, Inscryption and old data. Just to get it out of the way, going over to Inscryption is a dead end. We're able to see the same folders and file that Grimoire briefly looked over before, deleting everything, but not much can be done here. Now, going into the old data folder and listing its contents, we're able to see a lot of files, mostly PNGs and JPEGs that we don't have access to. In fact, in the entirety of the disk, we can only open one file, log.txt, but upon doing so, we see that it's encrypted. Let's try decoding it then. We need a cipher. You mean something like this? Doesn't work. So let's try turning what we got into a cipher itself. But wait, putting in a whole URL doesn't make any sense. Taking a look at the clue we got for that one, we see these two question marks at the end, which are also present in the URL, which also has the exact number of characters as per Hobbes does. Okay, let's put them all together, separate them from each other with a vertical bar, and doesn't work. Okay, so the Bone Lord one must be right. Let's see the first one. So there's 12 at the end there. Let's follow the same logic and switch the same number of characters for the corresponding numbers. Doesn't work. Let's try putting in the first 12 numbers then. We get access to the file. It's a log from a chat room in which Mr. Kamenski takes part in. It mentions someone named Barry Wilkinson and his successful idea of smuggling the disk with a bunch of blank ones to the US. However, if we take another look at the messages, we see that there are little bits of text mixed within them, and if we separate them, we get another cipher. Let's split them up and go over them one by one. This one is a little strange at first, but something to take note of is the final part, true, meaning true refers to a positive boolean in most coding languages. So, have we seen any files where a boolean could be applied? Yes, savefile.gwsave. We can't really open the file in-game, so we go to the actual Inscryption game files and there it is. So, what do we do now? Taking a second look at the clue, we realize that it makes much more sense to be divided in two parts. Now we have the values, but we don't know exactly where to put them. Well, right in the beginning we have this section of code with a bunch of different events that catalog what has and hasn't happened in our current save. The name is story events, SE. We put 167 in the content variable and raise the length by 1, basically forcing the game to know that that event has happened. BP follows the same principle, but it's arguably a little bit trickier to get there. That is until we search for Bone Lord, revealing an event called Bone Lord Puzzle Active as false. We switch it to true, save, and open the game back up. One part done, 2 more to go. 23K2 floor. The only thing we can really make out from this is the word floor at the end, but that in the beginning. 23K2. This is not the first time something similar has been shown. Do you still remember the last videos we saw from Luke Carter? I mentioned that there were 3 videos recorded on the 16th of November, but I never showed the third one, mostly because I didn't want to overwhelm you with information that was only going to be relevant here. But now, this. Luke has run these 4 things, a pig, 3K, and another pig. What does this mean? What do they represent might be a better question. If we go back to Lash's cabin, we realize that there is only one card that is based on a pig, the DOS. So could a 3 and a K represent other cards then? There's one card that Luke mentioned multiple times throughout the game, the Mantis God, praising the effectiveness of the card and how strong it is. After all, being able to attack the 3 opposite spaces in one turn is extremely useful. The 3 opposite spaces. Now, to understand what the K means, I have to mention what Luke is looking at in this video. This is the Wikipedia page for Carnoffle, a card game usually referred to as Europe's oldest card game. So, what does K represent in most card games? King. Red King. The DOS, Mantis God, Red King, and the DOS again. I think you know what we're meant to do next. We start a new run, play the cards in the exact order, and stop. Fun fact that I really want to add here, the DOS has a very interesting presence in the game. Firstly, the design is one-to-one to the actual card of the DOS in the actual game of Carnoffle, which its original card design was shown right here in the finale, and is in the old data files by the name of CarnDOS 1593, which is, most likely, a direct reference to where Daniel got this image from. And secondly, the name DOS is for dus, but it also sounds like the word for two in some Western European languages like French, Portuguese, Spanish, and not, unfortunately, because everything about the card revolves around 2. The cost, the attack, the health, and the representation of the sigil and its ability. Even the value of the card in the Carnoffle is 2. Now, for the second part, if we take another look at Luke's video, we can see another sticky note in the corner of the monitor that reads mirror and roaring, mirror reversed, so floor, roof. The only distinct roof that we saw is this one, Lash's cabin in Act 2, with the only remarkable thing being the missing planks on the roof, so for 1, stop 27341? Well, although that is the answer, it's surprisingly not the way it was intended to be solved, having absolutely nothing to do with this section of the map. In actuality, the real answer was hidden in the game's floor textures in chronological order. You had to get a hold on the game's assets using a third-party software and look closely at some of the textures. If you wish to know more, I recommend you to watch this Flamonet video, in which he shows exactly how the whole thing happened and the real way to find the code. Archive, new game. Archive, the archivist. If we go back to Act 3 and pay attention to the very moment the archivist appears, we can hear Morse code in the background. We take that audio apart, put it in an audio editor, go to spectrogram, and we get B, ear. Now, what about new game? Still in Act 3, whenever we get to go to the melter section of the fabric, we can see this crate with a flashing light coming from inside. As you can imagine, that's the new game button locked away just like Leshy had it behind the locked door in his cabin. But here, if we, again, take the audio and see its spectrogram, no chance. We go back to the console, save the log we deciphered previously, and decode it again using the new cipher. Another hidden log, this time in Polish. If we translate it, we see that whoever wrote these messages was trying to decrypt the old data while Game Funa was delaying the process by developing Inscryption, putting these individuals at risk of presumably being killed by the Russian government. And once again, if we take another look, we get a new puzzle to solve. At first, back to beginning seems to indicate that we have to go back to Leshy's cabin looking for something that may be off. But that's not it. In order to solve this cipher, the whole thing, one way or another, we'll have to look into past projects of Daniel Mullins. Starting off with the itch.io demo of Inscryption named Sacrifices Must Be Made. The game is very short, taking at most 15 minutes to complete, so what do we do? In the Hex, that other game from Daniel Mullins that also has a whole ARG around it, there's a section in which a file called cipher.cipher is used. So we download the demo, go to sacrificesmustbemade/data, create the cipher.cipher file, and in a trial and error effort, we end up with the second cipher inside that file. We then play the game as normal, and upon reaching the end of the game,
You've done it. What have you done to me? This new knowledge flooding into my head. I cannot unlearn.
Manatee. This one is interesting. In 2017, Daniel Mullins posted the following to BoardGameGeek.com, showing a couple of cards that he had created, which he named the Aqua Romans. And one of those cards is called Manatee Anthony. So, Anthony. Something that is worth mentioning. On October 21st, the Inscryption community decided to go to the coordinates that we saw back in the first set of videos, looking for some sort of clue or simply curious to see if there would be anything there. And upon arrival, they met Daniel Mullins and Kevin Saxby, the actor who plays Luke Carter, who helped them find and dig up the disc. After doing so, they ended up with two discs, the now unreadable original disc and another one that not only was intact and usable, but had a clue. That text inside the disc was the username of a Reddit account owned by Daniel Mullins that had a post on r/smashup that was one-to-one to the one on BoardGameGeek.com. A fun event that was planned to help the community solve this part, but it had already been solved by the time it happened. Birchkin and 5657M, another double cipher. Back in one of the first of Luke's videos that we saw in the very beginning, Luke is opening card packs from a game called Catch Monsters, in which he gets a card called...
Our first rare is a Birchkin.
Birchkin. Okay, so Catch Monsters, Daniel Mullins. We find a 10-year-old Kickstarter with a playable demo, so we play it. Upon starting a battle, we find the creature we're looking for, Birchkin, with a pacifism ability, which fits perfectly in the 8 characters of the cipher. Now, for this part, we have to look at another of Daniel's games that is also mentioned in the Hex's ARG, a game called Beneath the Surface, and it's pretty obvious to understand why that is so. The game is pretty much a clicker game. You fish, get money for the things you catch, and upgrade your hook, reel, and line length to get more valuable things more efficiently, with one aspect of the game being the depth in which you're fishing at always displaying here, in meters. However, before we get to fishing, we have to add the cipher.cipher file in the game's files with the first cipher inside. And after upgrading our line length to reach 60 meters, we start fishing between 56 and 57, and eventually caught something different. Who knows what secrets are inscribed upon it? We take the characters that are sort of out of place and complete our cipher. We go back to the console, save the log, and decode it for a third time to get this. This is it. This transcribed journal page reveals the very location of Herr Hitler's rotting corpse and, more importantly, the precisely ordered deck of cards in his jacket pocket, the Karnoffel code. I cracked the encryption last night. My situation here in the USSR is delicate, but I believe this intelligence warrants an action that may blow my cover. I am now prepared to smuggle the disk out of Moscow to West Berlin, then on Boston. The disk is carefully concealed among many blank ones. I believe this plan will work, and if it does not, better to lose this old data than allow the Soviets an opportunity to use it. As you're able to see, there's a link to a website in the message, but if we try to access it, it simply says this: "Orders is full. Seriously, what is wrong with you? Please await packages in mail if ordered." However, on November 21st of 2021, it was much different. There was a form you could fill in with the problem of your product, a promotional code, and an address. After some of the members in the community used their actual home address in the form, packages started to come in. 3 different discs, one for each of the first 3 to fill out the form. Each disc had 3 different puzzles, and 3 different pieces of said puzzles. And after combining all of them, we get this: a YouTube video URL, a new cipher, and the end. We take the cipher and decode the log for the 4th and final time. The text is in Russian. Upon translating, we get this. Me and my comrade Maxim took photographs of the corpse and buried it at the drop-off spot at... We're currently awaiting further instructions in a local tavern, playing a lot of the rack, accompanied with a few glasses of vodka. We're full and satisfied, but about our accomplished we won't say a word to our work today. It seems to us that we have already come to the end of such a long journey. After all of the effort to stop the upload of Inscryption, PO3 succeeded, but not in the way he intended to. He managed to upload the version of Inscryption we're playing in, and not the one where he's in charge. Still, the game is out there, and whatever is the exactly true extent of the Karnoffel code has made it to the internet. There's nothing more we can do. Lux and Lash's efforts were for nothing.
Having bested the cabin's inhabitants, you were invited to sit. The great scribe regaled you with his stories. He told you of a world long past and how he had conquered it, of how pure his true intentions were, how he only wished
Inscryption is truly a unique game. Everything about it impressed me in every way it could. The gameplay was addictive and felt great to get better at. The visuals, the very thing that got my attention in the first place, are simply stunning, from the grim atmosphere of Kaycee's Cabin to the welcoming art of Act 2. The music is also incredible. It really makes the game what it is, especially the one from Kaycee's Cabin, the one you're listening to right now. It creates this welcoming and mysterious ambience, which translates well to what Kaycee's Cabin is. And honestly, everything. My only hope is that I was able to show you how great and unique Inscryption is. If you still want to play the game after watching this video, it's the first link in the description. And let it be known, there are a lot of secrets that I didn't mention, whether that is because I figured they were not that important for this video, or simply because I forgot about them or never even saw them. So if you're interested, there's plenty for you to learn. And one more thing, the ARG part of this video wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the work of the community. Specifically, everyone in Daniel Mullen's Discord server involved in the solving of the ciphers, Flamonade, which made the ciphers easy to understand and to replicate, and these two guides from the Big Kahuna and Jack. Again, thanks to everyone involved. But anyway, I'm 31UB, and I hope to see you next time I upload. Bye.